So wherever your surti goes, that's where your energy goes. And so if you're attending to things that are difficult or disturbing, then your energy is going to take on that quality.
Anji.
And that stays within you. That's your energy field. So it's really
there's that
powerful.
study, I think by some Japanese scientist, and he said that whatever energy goes into water, the water takes on that form.
It's incredible. They've done the experiment with water crystals and rice. And what they do with water crystals, they put labels on top of the water, like hate, like sadness, loneliness. And then they'll do some positive labels. And they look at the formation of the crystals. And it's completely different. It's like the beautiful crystals form with the like nice positive language, and really kind of horrible looking disfigured crystals form. I never used to believe any of this stuff. I thought it was all woo woo. I was just like, there's nothing in this. But now I'm like, it's all energy. It's all about energy.
Did you start off quite like on the science side more?
I was very cynical.
Okay.
I was always brought up to question and challenge. And so if somebody put something like Sakya, people would like tell me, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. That's like, you know, when I was younger, and my dad was always really like, I appreciate what he gave me, the quality to kind of be introspective and to challenge and to reflect.
Anji.
But he was always like, no, that's not true, or this isn't true, or you need to question. And it helped me. But at the same time, I was very cynical and very much like, you know, all of this stuff is airy-fairy, like Anha the Shabad and all this stuff that we don't understand. That, you know, obviously I haven't experienced. So I'll be like, no, it doesn't exist. But now, you know, my scientific mind is actually like learning from science that this stuff is true.
Wow.
So it's convincing me.
That's really cool,
you know?
man. And I think in today's world, a lot of people push this on us as well, that you should try and go from that angle. Like see the overlap between the two, between spirituality and the science.
Yeah.
And then it will just bring so many more people in as well. Because the way we think today, especially in the West, is that we are there to challenge everything, right? Even education system, like we challenge even our teachers.
Yeah.
Right. But if you look at the Eastern system, we talked about this before, you wouldn't ever challenge your ustad.
Yeah.
Right. You just say Satbachan. If you didn't agree with it, you probably just have to let it go, or you could do Beinti.
Yeah.
But in the West, it's the complete opposite. So
Really?
it's now we have to take the skills that we've learned and try and apply it to the West, and try and bridge that gap between the two.
I think it's healthy to challenge as well. And I feel like our gurus taught us to challenge.
Definitely,
and, you know, Bhagat Kabirji and their Barney, and like, they're just like, you get a sense of personality, character, and how it's like, you know, you don't just take for granted what you see and live in the way that people are living around you, but you find that kind of internal path. You seek the truth, and that's often different. That was with Guru Nanak Dev Ji's time. Living the truth was very different to what was being lived at that time.
Definitely.
And so I think there's value in challenging. But yeah, exactly. I think the problem is that if you don't challenge, you've got to be really lucky to get like the best, like awesome Sangat, Pura Guru. Because if you just take on everything that is said by the Pura Guru or the like, good Sangat, then that's great. But if you end up in bad Sangat, then you don't question.
Yeah.
Then you get yourself into a bit of a rut.
Definitely difficult situation.
So...
But then at the same time, you can't focus on the questioning, because then you get stuck in like duality, and then you can't ever get out of that hole sometimes. I find a lot of people, especially my friends from high school, they got stuck in that like loop, or that, oh, if this happens and God doesn't exist, or this or that. But it's like there's Panktiya in Gurbani about if your house is on fire, are you going to question who put it on fire, why is it on fire, or are you just going to get out the house?
That's so true. By the time you've actually tried to use your intellect to solve the problem's already burnt you away.
Exactly.
Like, that's interesting.
I like that analogy of the house on fire. It's really cool. You can apply that to a lot of things in general.
Yeah.
But maybe just a random topic to start with then. What personal hobbies? Do you have any personal hobbies that you like doing?
Personal hobbies? Oh my gosh. You know what? Since becoming a mum, I feel like there's no time for hobbies. But what do I enjoy? I really enjoy like singing, Kirtan, mostly. I've always connected with music. So I generally like music.
Okay.
And obviously I really enjoy, like, we've got a keyboard in the house downstairs and vajje and things. And like, as a family, we all connect with like music, and we'll have music time together. Sometimes it's Kirtan, sometimes it's other stuff, whatever the kids want. They'll put the demo on the keyboard. Do you remember the demo button? and it would like, we'll be doing Kirtan and they'll just press that and start jumping around. But it's just not, music just kind of lightens the mood and the feel. And it kind of connects us as a family. So I enjoy music. Other hobbies, really basic things. Like I don't have any extravagant hobbies. Just things like kind of going for walks.
Okay.
We've got a park near us. And when I get a chance, just like leaving my phone at home and just kind of going for a gentle, slow walk and just allowing myself to be free from everything like technology, like the kids, like housework, like everything. It's just my time to just literally just be and not do anything. And
that's interesting that you don't take your phone with you, because I know like for me personally, I'd always take my phone with me wherever I go because just in case, you know, I need to contact someone or work, if somebody messages me, especially in the field like of doing barajar, can be at any time that someone messages you.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that you don't even take your phone with you when you go for a walk then. So is it like you're switching off then from everything in the world?
The phone is like, I've got a more of a hate relationship with it. I don't want to, but I've got a love-hate relationship with it. As in, it connects me to people and I can watch Katha on it and I can, you know, listen to audio Simran on it and I can email and have wonderful conversations with people. But at the same time, I feel bombarded sometimes because it's always going off, you know, notifications, like WhatsApp notifications, Facebook notifications, Instagram, like there's always something happening. And so if you've got a moment to be still, guaranteed, if you have your phone with you, you're not going to have that moment of stillness. It's going to be taken away from you like within seconds. And so in order to get some stillness, which is something I've really come to value increasingly, before I didn't, but, you know, like with stillness, you kind of, when you experience, like if you just take a moment now, like here we are in the studio and we're talking and it's quite relaxed. But like we're kind of in our thoughts, like I'm thinking, oh, I hope I'm doing a good job here, or I'm thinking about what you're saying. And that's cool. That's part of living and being in your thoughts. But then when you come out of that for a moment and you just be still, like that experience of just space and nothingness is quite relaxing.
Definitely.
You know, if you're able to experience that and not go into thoughts, because what happens is the mind will just jump into thoughts. The stillness will happen for like 1 second or 2 seconds. But then immediately the mind will just be like, oh, you got to do this, or what about this, or like, you know, you got to get up and do this, or that really intelligent thought came up, you've got to mention that. And like, it's just, you get sucked into this like world of thinking and there's no peace in that. When you have good thoughts, it makes you feel good and happy. But most of the time we have a mixture of good, negative, you know, critical thoughts about ourselves, or why did you say that? You sounded really silly when you said that, or whatever. Like we've got all kinds of thoughts.
Yeah.
And so, that we started off with the phone. So I think the phone is like, you know, I've got to kind of have time away from it and boundaries. Like in the evenings, I have to try and make sure I keep my phone downstairs.
Okay.
Because if it's in my room, I'll try and find some way of getting it, like whether it's with my foot, whether it's with my arm, because I've got to sleep with the kids and stuff. So it's like, it's just so addictive that even though I know it's addictive, it's still addictive.
Definitely. Phones are very addictive. And that's why I brought the topic up. We joke and say it's like our Sikhs kakar having a phone in us as well. So,
and it's crazy because like what it does to us in terms of our body on a physiological level is really shocking. So when we're like plugged into technology or we're on our phone, like most of us, including myself, will get up in the morning and check Facebook, check Instagram, check emails, check WhatsApp, check whether I've got any missed calls, right? We're in this habit of checking. And when we're doing work as well, we'll have like one tab open and then we'll have another tab. Then we'll have another tab and then Instagram, and then we'll like scroll through and think, oh, I need to get that bag. And then an advert will come up for something else. Then you think, oh, there's a CPD event for psychology. I've got to sign up onto that. And I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss that. And by the time it's been like half an hour's passed and you're like, wait, what was I doing again?
Yeah.
And it kind of steals your time.
Definitely. Even when people watch TV, they've got their phone out as well at the same time.
Yeah.
I only realized it recently when I was at home. I walked in my living room and I see my mom watching TV, but she's on her phone.
Yeah.
I'm like, then why are you watching TV for?
Yeah.
Right? So we're not even doing one thing now. We're doing multiple things at the same time.
And what happens as a result of that is our attention span becomes very short.
Okay.
Right. So we have like a 4-5 second attention span, which means that every 4 or 5 seconds, where like, thoughts come all the time, distractions come all the time. We can't focus on one thing for very long. And if you take a child, for example, who's constantly plugged into technology, video games, television, social media, what happens is that every time they check their phone or they play a game, they get this surge of dopamine release. But you were talking about that, the dopamine release is a reward pleasure chemical that our body releases. And once that's released, we want to do the same thing to get that same feeling of pleasure and reward. But the thing is, because we're so plugged into technology, the amount of dopamine release is like crazy. It's like constantly releasing dopamine. And what happens, it gets a bit technical, but the receptors which receive the dopamine get desensitized, which means they need more and more dopamine to get the same effect of pleasure. And the result of that is, you take a child, we now need stimulation, but that particular kind of stimulation, like video games, television, movies, in order to feel pleasure. And when we don't have them, what we experience is a loss of pleasure, something called anhedonia, which means we can't experience pleasure in the simple things, like going for a walk or sitting with a friend. We need that level of stimulation, that being bombarded, in order to feel pleasure. And that links into our well-being, So that's why without stimulation, and for example, look at lockdown, we're in lockdown now, and stimulation is reduced in some ways. We're not going out so much. There's, we can't go to restaurants. I can't take the kids to play centers. We're mostly in the home. And a lot of people are feeling the effects of that because we're so used to being bombarded with stimulation that when we don't have it, we can't feel peace. We now just feel this loss of pleasure. It's like an addiction. It's like drugs. Like a drug. That's exactly what happens with drug addiction. So then you've got our young children who go to school, their attention span's really short, they can't learn, they can't take in. And so what they do is they play up because they're trying to get some kind of stimulation, or they'll spend their time on their phone at home. Like and then in the future, what we then learn, and we become adults, and we learn that we can't get pleasure from inside. We have to get pleasure. We can't experience peace. We don't really know what peace is, but we know what pleasure is, and that feel-good hormone. So we look for that all the time. And we do that through food. I do that through food. Do that through food, technology. We do it through video games. We do it through movies. So this becomes our life. And our bodies were never designed to be consuming stuff like this.
And this 5 seconds you talked about, is that just a random number, or is that like generally what it is?
I think it's about, it varies from person to person. But yeah, it's generally around nowadays, it's about 4 to 5 seconds. Like if you think about it, if you sit for 4 or 5 seconds, chances are you'll become distracted by something.
And just with YouTube stats, we look at stats. What is the stats for that? In terms of
retention span is like 3 seconds. If you don't get the audience retention in 3 seconds, that's it.
So when we make videos now, you have to make sure first 5 seconds of the video is really catchy and engaging. Otherwise, we know they're going to turn off. So now people are marketing their work in such a way.
But people don't realize nowadays that our attention span has become the product. And all these big tech companies, they've even admitted themselves that they've manipulated human psychology in order to get our attention span and to basically sell our data off.
What results is that we are not in control of our lives because we're just taken in any direction that these companies want to take us. They'll put an advert, and there's all these social media documentaries as well, how you can actually change people's opinions just by what you put out there, and people aren't consciously aware of it. And the science is that, what this technology does is that it puts you in like a trance-like state. And when you're in that kind of zombified feeling you get when you're just watching a movie or you're scrolling through social media and you're scrolling through channels, in that space, what happens is that your analytical mind switches off, and everything that is coming in, you just absorb, and it goes into your subconscious mind, and it just stays within you. You don't get to choose. You're not conscious of it, but it all just enters whatever you're absorbing, whatever it is. And then that's what you become. That's what your thoughts become. You then, a few days later, you think to buy something and you think that you made that decision. But actually, a few days before, you would have watched an advert and it was encouraging you to do that. So we're taking in so much and we don't even know what we're taking.
It's even that thing about you're saying that it could be in a conversation we had a few days ago as well, or something that you saw. We've had this a few times as well, that we're talking to each other about something random, and then we go on our YouTube and that's come up on our YouTube.
Okay.
So it was like the conspiracy.
No, it's not conspiracy. The device is
true. It does listen to you.
Yeah. So then that way your conversations, your phone is going to cater for that, right? And it's going to send those things towards you on your phone as well. So it's really crazy. And just more about the thoughts. What's your reach out on thoughts in general? Because you used that word quite a few times earlier as well. Even when you said intelligent thoughts, that's something that stuck out to me because that's my excuse to always keep my phone on me.
Yeah.
So I think if I have a really good idea, I need to write it down.
Yeah.
So I need my phone, or I need to tell God everything, but I've got this new cool idea and we've got to do this. And that way I never switch off.
Yeah.
So even recently for the past 2 months, I'd say, I don't switch off. My mind's always going. And I was joking with my mom. It's like I'm a computer and my disk is spinning, like in the hard drive. I'll just keep spinning and spinning and I'm not turning off.
Yeah.
And what's the whole reach out on thoughts then?
So what happens is that, we linking it back to the attention span, and what happens is that our attention is very scattered. And, like, in Gurbani, it talks about the 9 doors and how the mind escapes through the 9 doors. And that's what's happening day in, day out. The mind escapes. And we live within Maya. Even our body is Maya. Eh sarir sab mool hai Maya. And our thoughts come from Maya as well. So sometimes we can have intelligent thoughts. We can even have very compassionate thoughts. Whatever the thoughts are, they still come within Maya. So that's quite confusing. But in Gurbani, it talks about Tregun, Maya. Maya is the 3 gunas, and the 3 gunas have different qualities. You have Rajogun, you have Satogun, you have Tamogun.
Anji.
Within Rajogun, you have Asha, Bilasha, Trishna, Chinta, Fikr, all of those things. Within Tamogun is Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohankar, Nindya, Chugli, Irkha. And then Satogun is like the good kind of good thoughts, which are around kind of compassion, dharam, like santok, all of those things. And those affect us through our thoughts. So Maya actually has its influence over us through our vichar, right? So intellectual thoughts and good thoughts, and which feel like they're really positive. It's nice to have positive thoughts. You feel a lot happier when you're having positive thoughts than if you're having tamoguni or rajoguni thoughts, where you're worrying about something or you're feeling angry and you've got hatred towards somebody. You're going to feel a lot better with intellectual and kind thoughts. The problem is, though, that you're still within Maya, which means that when you are still within thoughts, you can't guarantee that you're going to stay in Satogun. You can't guarantee that you're going to have good thoughts. Because if you're within thoughts, if you're still within Maya, you will get pushed and pulled into the other gunas as well, Tamogun and Rajogun. And so what happens is, without us knowing, without our control, we get pushed and pulled and pushed and pulled, and we have no control over our thoughts. So we might happen to have a good thought, and that's wonderful, but we don't have any guarantee that we're going to have a good thought next or a positive thought next. And then, so what in Gurbani, when we talk about meditation and Naam Simran, Guru Sahib says that if we can come away from thoughts, so when we realize that the thoughts that are coming are still within Maya, we do need to use the thoughts to live in the world, to do our karam, right? But when we realize that the thoughts keep us within Maya, then we have to discover the thoughtless self, the part of us that doesn't think. Because that is the journey towards Chauthe Pad, like you Tregun Mette, Chauthe Varte. And that's where we can have a connection with Akal Purkh. Even Satoguni things are great. That's the path towards Chautha Pad. You're closer to Chautha Pad when you're in Satogun. So that's as you do meditation and you do Naam Simran. So let's like talk about that a little bit. So when you're a lot of us do Simran and a lot of us read Gurbani. And which is wonderful. We are so blessed to even have the opportunity to be able to read and understand Gurbani and to do Simran. But the problem is that because our minds are within Maya, and we're in Kaljug now, so even more so, like with the attention span being distracted constantly, it's really hard for us to switch off from our thoughts and actually do Simran and actually read Gurbani. So we will do it with our mouths and our tongues, and even that's blessed. But the problem is we're not getting the phal of it. Because when we do Simran, the thoughts start to come.
Hanji.
They will come. The first thought will be, oh, this is boring. Why am I doing this? Or wait, I really need to do that thing urgently. There's that Amazon thing in my Amazon basket. I really need to buy that. Yeah. Like, let me just do that. You know, like there's sometimes when I sit down for Simran and I don't ever actually end up doing the Simran. So I sit down. My phone's usually next to me. And then it'll be like 2 minutes in. Oh, wait, I've got to do this. Oh, I've got to do that. Because the thing with social media is that you actually can take action on your thoughts really quickly. You have the thought and you do the deed, right? Like whatever the thought is, you can take action. And that's the problem. We come to rely so much on our thoughts and follow them. So when we sit down to do Simran and we're trying to just settle the self and come away from thoughts and focus on the Simran, we can't, because the mind is just going into the first thought, into the next thought, and even intellectual thoughts. Sometimes I have the best ideas when I'm doing Simran. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to write this post about Dragon.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do Simran and I'm like, oh, I've got to write this post. And then, oh, I've got to like write this post about doing Simran. It's like, this is like not the point. So it takes a lot of practice and understanding that these thoughts are still within Maya, even though they're good thoughts. And then the more you do Simran, you focus your attention, your full attention, which takes like years probably, but you start the process, you focus your dhyan, your surti on the sound, right? Tun mein dhyan mein janiya, Gurmukh akat kahani, or the meaning of the Gurbani. You know, you're reading Gurbani to do Khoj of the Gurbani, to understand, but you have to have dhyan to do that, right? So as you start to do the Simran, Wah Guru, Wah Guru, like with even that short time, I had so many vichar. Like I could, but the more you do it, you start to get moments where you don't have the thoughts. Or you notice the thoughts, but they don't take you away from doing the Simran. So the first step is realizing that the thoughts are just thoughts and you do not need to do what they're telling you to do. They are not you. And they're going to come and go. Bad thoughts, good thoughts. Sometimes when you do Simran, the really like negative, difficult thoughts will come up, because here you are trying to settle the mind. And it's the Panch Jor's job, isn't it? It's their duty from a Kalpurk to take your attention away. So then you're like, oh, wait, but this is really bad. I'm never doing Simran again because of that horrible thought I just had. So that's the first step, realizing that the thoughts, everybody has thoughts from within Tamogun, Rajagun and Satagun. It's natural. It's the way that God's created us and the mind. So once we realize that these are within Maya, we can keep our attention stuck to the sound. Then we start to, and it starts to attach to the sound, your mind. And then you start to feel some peace, moments where you don't actually have thoughts. And that is like bliss. And then once you experience that, this is where I started. I never used to enjoy doing Simran. I found it really frustrating. And when I got married, Harbi used to do a lot of Simran, my husband. To get really annoyed with him. Why are you always doing Simran? You're just so annoying. I can't do Simran. I'd sit for like 1 minute, but I'm not doing this. I connect with Gurbani, I used to say. And I used to tell him Arth of Gurbani. You're saying this wrong. You're reading it wrong. And he'd be sitting there, Bachara, doing Simran with a really good character. And here was me being like, you're doing it wrong. I'm going to tell you the Arth. I'm going to tell you your mistakes. And now I feel like I'm a good Sikh, right? And so it's only when I started having experience of peace, because before that, and many of us are the same, we walk around in what we call fight-flight mode, which is this low-level irritation, stress in our body. You know, we don't quite feel settled. We feel just like a bit irritable. And so that was me. And that's many of us. Our lives are stressful, busy, you know, got to-do lists, go, go, go. And then when I had an experience of peace, I was like, wait, I can experience peace? Like, it's not just pleasure, it's not feel good, it's actually peace, and it feels so good. And once I'd had that experience, I was like, wow, what Guru Sahib's saying is actually true. Simaro, simar, simar, sukh pavo. You actually do get peace. Like, you know, we read it all the time, but yeah, once you experience it, then there's no going back, because then you start to realize that there's this truth, you know, that there's truth in what Guru Sahib is saying, the truth.
And even just with the idea of Kaljug, I was listening to some Vichar once, and it's like Kaljug links to Kalpana, which basically means thoughts. So it's like the age of thoughts. And that's what we're stuck in. So it's like a common question that many people ask, that, look, I've been doing Path for so many years. And people even say that we've been doing Path for so many years, but nothing's changed. But it's because in all that time, of course, there's still fall. So we never say by reading Gurbani, you didn't get anything from it. again, you didn't get all the fal, you didn't get all the fruits from it, right?
Yeah.
And for that reason, it takes so many years, but not much has changed in our lives, because when we're doing our part, our dhyan is not there. Our focus is not there. And I was listening to a great saint talking about this as well. And I said, that's why. It's because you've not understood the story. And I was saying this to Karami Singh again in our last podcast as well. It was like a Muslim father and his daughter, and they're not even Sikh, right? They're Muslim. But he was saying to his daughter that I'm going out to praise Guru Nanak Dev Ji until I find them, right? Wow. I'm going to call Guru Nanak Dev Ji by praising them. And I was like, that was just a completely different idea of what Sikhi is, right? That he had so much love for Guru Nanak Dev Ji that his dhyan, his concentration was just in Guru Nanak Dev Ji, right? And that's very powerful. You're saying even just the whole thoughts thing, because then when we do sit down, we cannot focus. But I'm guessing there are times in the day where it's better to maybe meditate, where you have less thoughts. So maybe early in the morning when, you haven't looked at your phone yet. Because I know if I look at my phone, then I'm wide awake. If I don't look at my phone, then I'm saying, why, Guru, I feel sleepy.
Okay.
Right? But before that, then, my mind's not thinking about the world, or before maybe you go to bed. So is there anything on that side as well when it comes to times of the days? When is the best time to kind of to relax the mind, or when is it easier to do that?
So meditation is amazing if you can do it at any time. So I don't want to create any barriers to doing meditation. There's no kind of, you're always going to get fal from doing meditation at whatever time you do it.
Anji.
But there is, obviously Guru Sahib we talk about Amrit Vela.
Anji.
And there is some science behind that as well.
Okay.
So this chap called Joe Dispenza, look him up. He does some awesome work. He talks about how our brain waves are of a particular kind first thing in the morning and just before we go to sleep, right? And those brain waves are like the brain waves of a young child. And you know how a young child is like a sponge? They absorb everything and they learn so quickly. They just take everything in, right? So when we do Simran in the morning or just before bed, we have a greater chance of absorbing that. And what it does is it penetrates into our unconscious mind. That's the part of our mind that can actually begin to change our habits and our habits of thinking and our habits of behaving. I don't know if I got that completely right, but basically it goes somewhere where you have a greater chance of actually bringing about change in your life.
Okay.
So if we can do it at first thing in the morning, that kind of sleepy phase when you're just about to wake up, or that sleepy phase, you're just kind of going to sleep. Have you ever studied something and you've had an exam and you read a whole book or something just before you go to sleep?
Anji.
And then you just remember it a bit easier the next day once you've slept.
That's what I did for all my exams the night before.
That's it. And somehow, because of the brain waves, we absorb more.
Okay.
So that's a powerful time to do it. But otherwise, anytime. And meditation, unfortunately, is never really easy. So it does get a lot easier. But at the beginning, it is hard work. And you have to really have a lot of kind of tarf to meet Waheguru, or to have devotion, and to really know why you're doing it, and sometimes that comes from suffering. So some people find their love for spirituality when they suffer, because it's like, we can all get to a point in our lives, because we all have a mind, that we find ourselves in such a difficult, dark place where we are bombarded with very difficult thoughts, negative thoughts, even suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And, I sometimes feel like, when we talk about mental health and we talk about mental health problems and disorders, I actually feel that when people go through experiences like this and they get to such a point in their life, almost on the other side of that door, we could see potential for spiritual awakening. People talk about the overlap between mental health and awakening and existential crises and finding your purpose and stuff. So I feel like, when we are in that deep, dark place, we look for something, don't we? Because what we are used to doing is attaching ourselves to the world, to the people in the world, to our things, our possessions, to our house. but Guru Sahib tells us, Sagal Shrestha ko Raja Dukhiya, Har ka naam japut hoy sukhiya. Or one of the ones that really hit me when I was a teenager and I was really struggling with low mood and my identity. I was the only Sikh girl, and I wore patka in a school where everybody was kind of white.
Okay.
And I really struggled with my identity, and I wanted to do everything they were doing. And I really wanted to just belong, because teenagers want to belong, right? But I was in real conflict. And I felt very low at that point. And I remember, because I was blessed to have parents who connected with Gurbani themselves, and as we got older started to talk to us about Gurbani and encouraged us to look at translations and things. And there was a dukh that really stood out to me. Mittar kanere kar thaki mera dukh kate koi. Like I've spent like my whole life looking for friends, hoping that somebody will relieve my pain, because that's what I was doing. I was looking for the company and to feel belonging. But no matter how much I had that, I still didn't feel peace. I still didn't feel whole. And that was where my search, my discovery started. You know, I was at a turning point in my life. I was like, do I just follow my friends and experience some pleasure and feel good and like feel connected, belonging? Or do I know that even if I do that, I'll still feel a little bit empty?
Anji.
And do I search for something more? So I did look at other religions as well. I really connected with Buddhism.
Okay.
And Sikhi was something I'd been brought up with. And I rejected that initially because I wanted to rebel against it.
Anji.
But as I started reading Gurbani, I was like, hang on a minute, like this isn't just about how you look or having to like, you know, do certain rituals. This is like about finding peace and happiness and truth. And that's when I started going on the path of Sikhi and psychology. That's where my interest for psychology came as well.
Okay.
Because I was, a lot of my friends at that time came from broken homes and were struggling with depression themselves and even getting into drugs and bad, unhealthy relationships. And I was like, why are we struggling in this world? Like, why do people have challenges? And how do we overcome those challenges? And is there more to this world than just what I see here? Because otherwise this is, you know, when somebody's very down and at the point where they're like, I've had enough of this world, there's got to be more. I'm not getting satisfaction or happiness. You could either label them as a mental health patient, or you could actually say, you're right, you know, there's truth in this. And this is the beginning of your discovery and your journey towards looking beyond.
And just if we look at Gurbani, even we talk about dukh and stuff, it's about channeling that energy in the right way. Just punkti that comes to my mind is Diva mere ek naam, dukh vich paya tel. That, you know, the Diva, even someone said this to me recently, even when it comes to spirituality, that you have this fire inside you and you need to keep the fire going of God's name, of spirituality, Simran. And it's that dukh that is the tel, the pain is the oil. And all that oil is used to light that fire. But they say, Oho chanan, Oho sokhya. So basically that light that is being fueled by the tel, by the oil, it's burning out all the dukh anyway, right? So what you need the dukh to do the Naam Simran, but when you do the Naam Simran, all that dukh is being burnt away anyway. Chuke jumps your mail, and then we escape from death basically, or that death that we're all afraid of, right? But it's just the death of the ego, right? And that fear that we all have inside us as well. So that's really interesting when we talk about pain and stuff, because a lot of people go through it, and I guess in those times of struggles, those are the times that we go the most, right? And I'm sure you see that with the patients that you work with as well, then, like you're saying, that it could go either way, right? They could have a connect, which is hopefully, which you're hoping they're going to do.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? Because when somebody comes to you, like, so when a patient will come to me and they're in so much distress and they're just like at the end of their tether, you know, people usually seek therapy as a last resort.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, why do you have to come as a last resort?
So what is a way that you could make it not the last resort then? What do you think? Like you're saying to before we started that we as Pracharakas are in the best position because they come to us first. But how do you think, you know, we could make it more approachable for people then to approach therapists earlier then?
I think that it is a difficult issue actually, because within the Sikh community, there's and Punjabi community and lots of other communities, a lot of stigma around mental health, because we use these words mental health, and when we think of mental health, we think somebody talking to themselves in the street or you know, not well kept and just like
bad
violent.
Connotation.
There's such a really negative connotation. And now we know that mental health is on a continuum, that you're not just like, you've got mental health problems and you're on this crazy side. You know, crazy is a term used as well.
Yeah.
Pagal ho gaya banda, all that kind of stuff. You're not just, you know, mental health. We all have a mind. And so we all have the potential to have a mental health problem.
So is this a new thing then, or is it just always been there?
It's been around for a fair amount of time. But when mental health services started like set up, it was very much like, these people are mentally ill. Like they've got some kind of biological genetic problem. They're destined to be this way. They need to be managed through medication because they've got chemical imbalances. You know, it's like, it was this really the opposite of empowering view. It was like, this has happened to you. And then if you think of that Sikh Punjabi community, it's like, oh, there must be some black magic done here, bad karam, all of that stuff. So traditionally, mental health has been viewed as this really bad thing that only happens to like the worst people or the cursed people and stuff. And so that's where our thinking has come from, you know, and even our services are, you know, not moving quickly enough in the direction of this continuum way of looking at mental health, which is that we all suffer. And, you know, take resources away from somebody, like during this lockdown, for example, take away their social support, take away their stable work, and you will see a deterioration in mental health, right? It's inevitable. Like if we are struggling with external circumstances, it's not inevitable, but because we haven't learned how to nourish our mind or learnt the skills to manage our minds, we are very passive. Like when stuff happens, we struggle, we fall. And so I feel like I've gone completely off topic here. But yeah, so the continuum model, I think people are moving more and more towards that. And within Sikhi, just going back to stigma, so there's a lot of stigma, and also people haven't experienced it, right? People don't really talk if they've had a problem or they've struggled and they've gone to see somebody. They'd rather keep it under closed doors, behind closed doors. So it's like, you know, nobody really knows how to access help and what it's going to be like.
We're playing catch up in that respect as well. Like I only know about mental health more now, just through the past few years with all these like social media, you know, like with like days when you have mental health day and stuff like that. And obviously with Baljeet Singh, you're talking a lot about it as well. And not just playing catch up, but a lack of understanding as well. Like I remember a few years ago, if I would think of somebody who's not mentally well, I think, how can somebody not be, that doesn't make sense in my head. It just, but I think there's a lack of that empathy as well. It's only when somebody actually feels some sort of mental health issue, then they realize actually this can happen to anyone. Right, and that's crazy, and I definitely are playing catch up. That's what I feel, because even now having this discussion with you, learning so much just even now, and the link between the two, like, you know, even I remember we was talking about on the phone as well. A lot of things that the saints may say or have said, it's all kind of the same thing, but it's just now it's being said in a different way, right? So it's crazy to think about, just with all the thoughts and stuff like that, and the mind.
Yeah, and I think like if we all dig deep and we all really honestly reflect, we've all experienced problems with our mental health from time to time. You know, we've all struggled with feeling anxious or worried. You know, worries have kept us up at night, or been in a place where we feel low and we don't feel like doing anything, and we feel low energy and we don't feel a sense of pleasure or peace in anything. We all experienced that stuff because you know, we haven't been taught very much, you know, as a society, you know, going through school. We're taught about academic knowledge, acquiring academic knowledge, how to have a good career, how to make everything that's external good and successful. But we were never taught about the mind. And, you know, like we spend so much time looking after our bodies. You know, we have a shower every day. And we put nice kapde on, you know, we dress ourselves up nicely, do our dastar. You have to check. I even went and checked before this because I didn't want it, you know, to look. So we put a lot of dhyan on in that. And, you know, like working hard for our kids, getting money so we can make sure their future is secure, and sending them to education. It's the external stuff we put a lot of emphasis on. But nobody taught us how to deal with the mind and how to look after the mind. You know, even with the body, we'll do exercise, we'll eat well, we try to, Yeah, because we know how it affects us.
Hanji.
But then what about the mind? You know, Guru Sahib says, Man ka tosa har naam hai. Like the food for the mind is naam. But we never got the food for the mind. We never got its nourishment. And when the mind doesn't get its nourishment, then that's when you see being bombarded with thoughts, the anxiety, the depression. So in the same way that we need to do things in order to keep our physical health well, we have to do things to keep our mind well.
Hanji.
And we need to take time out and understand what the mind is, how we can look after it, what its food is, where we can get its food from, and give it to the mind. Make sure we work hard to try and give the mind its nourishment.
Hanji.
And then in that way, Guru Sahib says that we will be peace, we will experience peace, we will be Sikhi.
Hanji.
Well, just on that point as well, Guru Sahib also says that bande khoj dil har roj. That like every day we should have that introspection and think about our mind, but then also going beyond that, introspecting into our soul. And that is so hard, I feel, because nowadays we have that instant gratification from like all these stimuluses or social media and everything. And when we try and sit down and do like meditation or something or search our mind or heart, it's like we're not getting anything.
Yeah, and we didn't even know that meditation was supposed to be for doing that, doing khoj of our bodies, you know, gurmukh hove, so kaya khoj, right, kaya's body. So we didn't even know that we were supposed to search our body. We thought we were just supposed to do what everybody else is doing and acquire and get involved in the world and do everything. But we didn't realize the gems and the jewels that were in us, and that Vaheguru has put within us, the sukh sahulta that Vaheguru has prepared for us if we just go into our home, our nijkar, right? Nijkar mehel pavo sukh sehje, baur na hoy ko fera. Like there's so much sukh in our home, but the mind just doesn't know how to get there. But Guru Sahib's given us, and like a lot of people do know now, people are awakening and they're realizing that what they're in touch with in the external world isn't bringing them happiness, is not enough. And people are connecting to themselves a bit more. They're reflecting every day. People do journaling. They're writing what their thoughts and feelings are. And then they're taking some time to come away from their thoughts and feelings and go inside and do meditation or through yoga or whatever, just trying to just figure out what's inside the body. Because we forgot that we weren't the body, right? That we're the mind. And we forgot. So there's a lot of work to do.
It's very practical as well in terms of what Viji's saying about the khoj dil har roj. Even just when we comb our hair, for example, right, that was a time where you're meant to think about your day as well. Like take out all the knots, like all the galti, all the mistakes I made in the day as well. So it was very practical as well. That Guru Sahib gave us his routine, and you talked about exercise, diet. These things are already included. And I think that's where your social circle helps out a lot as well. Who are the people that you're hanging around with? What habits are you picking up from the people around you as well? So if we're hanging around people that are spiritually high, or just those that are, very positive because of their spirituality, then that's going to rub off on us as well.
There's that saying that you're the average of the 5 most people you spend time with.
Yeah. Average weight, isn't it, or something as well? There's one around weight as well. Okay. They're like, Harbi was telling me that if you look at the people around you and you look at their weight, you're most likely going to be within the average of the weight range.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Because if my friends are like, we're going to go out, eat a lot to restaurants, then obviously I'm going to get fat.
That's why I hang around with so many tall people, isn't it?
You're going to get taller.
It hasn't happened yet. But we can have a different conversation on science and height and lifting weights and stuff. But just that point about the mind then, and you keep saying that we're not the mind and we're not the body and this kind of stuff. Is there any more vichar on that in a science way, in terms of like, if we look in Sikhi, we have the three, not in Sikhi, but just generally spiritually, we talk about the 3 bodies. The physical body, which is known as Asthul Sarir, Suksham Sarir, which is a subtle body. So like people talk about, you're watching the movies when someone passes away and then like the soul comes out. But again, we don't follow that. We would say that when you leave the body, so subtle body that comes out. And then after the subtle body is another body called the Garden Sarir as well. I'll just go from very briefly. So the physical body is this body, right? Made up of the 5 elements. So fire, water, earth, etc. And then the subtle body underneath is made up of our indriya, so of our sensory organs, so the eyes, the ears, skin, tongue, and nose. That's the last one. And then the garam indriya, the actions that come from that, so sight, right? So you've got 5 Gyan Indriya, got 5 Karam Indriya. So you've got 10 there. But then you've got the Panj Pran. So the Panj Pran are basically, when we translate Pran generally in English, we say breath, right? But it's not actually just the breath. That's one of the prans. So it's 5 life forces that actually go through our body. So one of the prans is responsible for us breathing in, and another pran is responsible for us breathing out. But then the last 2 on top of that is the man and the bud. So our subtle body, underneath this body, is made up of the mind and the intellect. But then even deeper than that is the Karan Sarir, which is just ignorance, which is agyanata. So we have all these 3 bodies, but the interesting thing is that we're none of these 3 either, but we think we are them, right? If somebody goes beyond the body, for example, like it comes in Itihas, in history, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji traveled to like Sangla Deep. You know what Sangla Deep is? I do this to people. I'm so bad, man. When they do it, he does it to me as well. He puts me on the spot. But luckily, I just about get it, and then like in your face. It's Sri Lanka today.
Okay.
So Guru Saji went and they spoke to the king, Raja Shivna. They'd ask these questions. If I'm not the body, then I'm the mind. But then what's interesting about that, and the way they kind of prove that we are not the mind, is that when you are awake, like right now we're all awake, hopefully, right? We're in the body. And the body is moving. But when we go to sleep, the body is no longer moving, right? Unless you're sleepwalking, right? The body, we're not using these 5 elements, right? We're using our mind. We're using our intellect still when we're dreaming, right? And we could be using our sensory organs as well. But then if we go into a deep sleep, then who was thinking there? No one was thinking. We didn't even dream nothing. And that is the last stage, and that is a stage of ignorance. And the way a great Guru Sikh will say to us, it's like, you have that deep sleep and you feel so great. When you wake up, you didn't dream nothing, but it was like, and I'm sure there's studies on deep sleep and how good it is for you as well. And we wake up and think that was the best sleep, sleep I've had in a long time. But it's like, that was the best sleep I had. But who was that was having that sleep? It wasn't your mind, because you wasn't thinking nothing then. So you can't be the mind, because there's a stage.
And how do you know you had a good sleep?
Yeah, how do you know that?
What's telling you that?
What was the intellect? You wasn't using your senses, so you're none of these things as well. So there's even more to it. So then, like, what is that vichar in terms of like, what is a crossover? Is there a crossover between the mind and we are beyond the mind, or is people still think that we are the mind?
I think that's a very deep question. And I don't know if I have the answer to that, to be honest. Because I'm also struggling with the difference between like your man and your atma.
Okay.
And so maybe your atma, what we refer to as soul, is Guru Sahib's ansh, is like we are the part of Guru Sahib.
Hanji.
And the man is also Jyot Sarup. So it's made of the Panch Tat, right? Eman karma, eman dharma, eman Panch Tat te janma.
Okay.
So the mind is also made of the Panch Tat.
Hanji.
In the same way as the body is, but it's also Jyot Sarup. So it's just if the mind realizes what it is truly. Because if the mind thinks it's the thoughts, then it's deluded.
Hanji.
But the mind is beyond the thoughts.
And what's a cool way of looking at it is that it's actually the Atma that's pervading, the soul is pervading through these things. It's pervading through the mind. So the Atma is powering the mind.
Yeah.
But we look at it the other way, or we don't even think of that.
Yeah.
Right? So we think that we are the mind, we are this, we are that, but it's actually the Atma that is powering all those things.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go too much into it. It can get quite complicated, but it's like all these layers that we have in front of us.
Yeah.
But we don't realize that we are not those layers, but what is making those layers work? What is allowing us to breathe? It's all the Atma. Once you take the soul out of this body, it becomes jar. It becomes lifeless.
Yeah.
Whilst it's in here, then it's Chetan, it's conscious. We're a conscious being. And people get afraid of that as well. That we've got a few messages where people say, when I die, what's going to happen to me? Like this me, this consciousness, where I not think anymore. But Guru Sahib is saying, you are a conscious being. You are always conscious, right? And when it comes to the mind is just thinking.
Yeah, the mind is asleep in Vichar. There's this really nice analogy in Gurbani about the Gurbani, I think, is Kaya Nagari Eho Man Raja Supne Paya Pikhari.
Hanji.
Like the mind is supposed to be the king of the body kingdom.
Yes.
But the problem is that it's fallen asleep. And so instead of the mind ruling the body kingdom, who rules it instead? The Panchjor come and become the advisors.
Hanji.
So what happens is the mind is asleep, the Panchjor are ruling the kingdom, and they're doing their kam, whatever they want the body to be doing.
And Bhai Veer Singh Ji talks about this as well. Have you read their books before, Bhai Veer Singh Ji?
Not so much, but I've heard they're brilliant. My husband's read them.
Amazing scholar. Yeah. Even just the English translations are really good
very
as well.
touching the way he writes. I've read a few.
Hanji.
Yeah.
And again, they were like a saint scholar. So they had both those qualities that, we could really admire. And they would say that the ego, we were meant to be the master of the ego. We were meant to control our ego, but the ego, we become a slave of them. Because we all have a subtle ego. We're all here and we have an identity. So that is like a subtle ego, right? Even the Khalsa Panth, right? We say that we are the Khalsa, right? But the thing is that we let the ego control us when we was meant to control that. And just another pankti that comes to mind is Kya tu soya, jag e anna. Guru Sahib is saying, why are you asleep for? Right? We're all asleep in our actions. Jag e anna. They're saying, it's quite funny, saying you fool. Iana means like idiot, basically. I like using that word. Like, wake up, you idiot, right? Kya tu soya, jag iana, te jeevana jag sach kada jana. You see, this whole world is a truth, but it's not the truth. And I like just when the pankti start to flow, even in Sukhmani Sahib, they say, Supana manoratha brithe sabakaje. They say, we're asleep in our manorath. Manorath here means, I just thought it meant thoughts, manorath. That's what the English translation is. And this is a cool topic we can talk about as well, is the terminologies from Punjabi and English.
Okay.
So that manorath, what I learned recently was that it means man hai rath. So the mind is a chariot. And it's filled with so many things. Right? It's filled with asa. It's filled with trishna. And when we look at the English translations, asa and trishna just means hopes and desires. Right? But like, what's interesting is that asa is it's a desire for something that we haven't obtained yet. And then trishna is something that we have obtained, but we're still not satisfied. Right? And we don't have santok. No one has santok. And I remember from the Zoom calls you're talking about as well, people talk a lot about acceptance as well. And that's a big issue today. And Guru Sahib is saying, Bina santokha nahi ko rajya. Without santok, no one is ever content in their lives. So, what's your vichar on santok then? When it comes to acceptance as well?
Yeah, just before we go into that was really interesting what you're talking about, and how just bringing it to the practical with the king that's asleep and the mind that's asleep. So, how do you waken the mind then?
Yeah.
Like practically, like because Guru Sahib says. Simar, simar, simar gore apna, soya man jagai. Right? So the solution is there as well.
Anji.
That if the mind is asleep, we can awaken the mind through doing simran and through remembrance. And then that's when then you have the experience of who you actually are, that you are the king. You forgot, you thought you were the beggar, but you're actually the king. And I think that links onto santok because the quality of contentment is a satoguni quality, right? And it's a quality that we can't obtain because the thoughts bombard us, the thoughts of greed bombard us, right? So it's almost as simple and as really difficult as that, which is that once you can come away from the thoughts, then you no longer buy into the thoughts that say, if I have a bit more money, I'll be happier. Because the Panchjor will bring those thoughts, greed, and it will bring those thoughts to you. Or, I haven't got this yet, or I haven't got that yet, or I just need to do this. I just need to get this one thing. I just need to work hard for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And then I can do this. So it's this kind of if-then mentality, which is I will be happy or I will achieve my goals when I do this. So it's just as simple as when the thoughts come, if we realize that contentment is something we're struggling with, we'd like to have more of, when we have thoughts that don't reflect contentment, we can just see where they're coming from and understand, this is the Panchjor again. We're in this game and the Panchjor are just taking my dhyan away.
Hanji.
But it's not easy to come to acceptance. It's very difficult. You know, especially when we feel that somebody is mistreating us.
Yes.
Or we're in a life circumstance that's difficult. Or we perceive to be that we're in misfortune of some kind.
Even nowadays with all this television, movies and social media, we get a real false expectation of what is happiness. And we're trying to live up to that false expectation. But that's not really the reality, is it?
This is the biggest thing, I think. This is one of the biggest driving forces for a lack of contentment, which is that we see these pristine images and people living like with smiles on their faces, with their families doing like, you know, going on holidays and all this kind of stuff. It's funny when I think of that because Harbir's always posting pictures of our holidays and I'm like, but we also talk about our fights. So hopefully it balances it out. But that's the thing, because we're always seeing, we're bombarded with, this is Kaljug, isn't it? We're bombarded with things that make that, and then we look at our lives and we feel that we're lesser. But that's because we haven't realized what Sukh is, what true Sukh is. We haven't had the opportunity to experience peace from inside. Because with peace from the inside, that is a place of contentment. You don't need anything else to be peaceful. You found it within you. And Guru Sahib, there's some really wonderful Gurbani where, you know how we talked about dukh and how dukh is like fuel for growth. But then when you do Simran, you go beyond dukh. And, you know, Guru Sahib says that I will remember you in pain. But even if I am in pleasure and sukh, I will still remember you.
Hanji, hanji.
And it's like that remembrance that keeps somebody grounded and stable and anchored. And the remembrance and the knowledge that you are not the master. We are not the masters of our life. Like, you know, we want to feel empowered, but we are kind of like knocker. We are, and the reason I say that is because Guru Sahib is the puppet master. And there's this really beautiful shabad. I don't know if I remember it now. Mati ko putla kaise nachata hai.
Hanji.
Dekha dekha. It's like God is the puppet master and we're just the puppets. And that feels like it's not empowering, but actually it takes a lot of burden away from us. You know, if you think about, there's this analogy about somebody working on a farm, for example, and they're the knocker and they've got a master. They'll do their job for the day and then they'll go home.
Yeah.
Who has the fikr? Not the knocker, the master does. Hanji. But if the knocker decides he's going to be the master, then he's got to take on that fikr, the burden of the chinta. Guru Sahib's already taking care of everything. So it's the gyan and the dhyan. So when we do the Simran, we have an experience. And when we understand Gurbani, we understand that Appe karta kar kar vekhe. Denda saas giraha hai. Guru Sahib is taking care of us. Whatever he's doing, he is doing. And he's giving us breath as well.
Hanji.
Yeah. So that I think allows us to feel a sense of, okay, whatever's happening is in Guru Sahib's hukum. And even if I understand that on an intellectual level, on a theoretical level, then when I do the Simran, I can come away from the thoughts that tell me otherwise.
Hanji.
You know?
And what I like about that, and even what I'm sensing when you're speaking, is that everything you're saying sounds like it's in the present moment. You know, we're saying that Guru Sahib is taking care of me. It's like we're no longer worrying about the past. We're not worrying about the future. We're grounding ourselves in the present moment, which is very important, right? And that's what we forget to do, to remember, look where we are right now. And it's a very interesting term that I heard called Vartaman Gali, which means the present, the street of the present. And it links to the whole like 7 chakras and stuff like that, which a lot of people hear about in the West. But the way I heard from a saint was it's called like the Sat Sarovar. It's like the 7 pools that are inside us that we can bathe in. And it links to spirituality, again, links to meditation and bhakti, that when we sit down, that we focus on that spot within inside us. So like in Guru Arjan Dev Ji's Bani, they say, Tarta Sohavi, Tal Sohava, which Amrit Jala Chaya Ram. It comes in the Santa Ke Karaj Aap Khulaya Shabad. They're talking about Harmandir Sahib. They're saying that the Tarta Sohavi, the Tarti is so beautiful. Tal Sohava, the actual, the Tal, the lake, the pool, the Sarovar is so beautiful, which Amrit Jala Chaya Ram, where the Amrit is there, is gushing. But that same Harmandir is inside you. That bank, they always forget it's like Harmandir, Hanji.
Gyan Ratan Pargat hoye.
That's it, all the jewels, the Gyan is all inside you. And it's about becoming present in in that, becoming present in that moment, and just going inside and even just bathing in that pool. And there's different ones you can bathe in. I don't want to go for the whole 7 chakras, right? But the most simplest one that people really like is the heart. Just focus on your heart area and just focus there. That's it. So like we talk about different techniques, Jugtiya for Simran. One is the tuni, the sound, which eventually people will hear if they continue. Or it's just the way is that musus karna. Just feel that one. Be present and feel them in the moment. And feel them in your heart area. Feel them even in any part of your body, you can feel them. But what's really cool about what you're saying is just checking yourself and becoming very present in the present moment. And that helps a lot of things. And it's a journey that everyone is on. And, you know, again, being a Sikh, being someone who's a spiritual seeker, Jagyasu, who is seeking the truth, you know, there's different stages that people walk, right? Like I know when somebody starts off on the path, we're talking about this as well, that they have this question about Karam and Hukam. Free will versus, you know, actions. And what's interesting from a story by Guru Arjan Dev Ji was that when you're walking the path, when you're starting off, it's pretty much Karam. Like you have to do the actions. But then eventually you'll get to the state where actually we realize that Guru Sahib is doing everything. But it's that we put our faith into Guru Sahib Ji. And then we become in the present moment that actually this is Guru Sahib Ji's perfect plan. I hate saying that sometimes because then something bad happens. I'm like, I shouldn't have said that because now it's their perfect plan. I got to live by it. Yeah. But then it's about having that sharda. It's about having that faith. That actually Guru Sahib Ji is taking care of me and I don't need to worry. Don't need to have chinta, anxiety, and all these kind of things, right? Again, these are probably not that simple, like for someone just to follow, but it's that path that we're walking, right? And there's not, like you're saying, we all go through pain. We all have times in our lives when we're struggling, and there's nobody that doesn't struggle. Only those very few people. So maybe we're too hard on ourselves as well, right? Maybe we don't realize that there's nothing wrong with being sad. There's nothing wrong with failing, because what it is that we have these bunch joy inside us and we're not perfect, but we try to be perfect. So I thought I'd just chuck that in there. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's just so profound and deep. And you're right, everybody's on their individual journey. But the thing is that simply being given this human life means that this is our opportunity.
Definitely.
Isn't it? There's this shabad, I think it's right, but Gur seva te bhagat kamai, tab eh manas dehi pai. Because we've done bhakti in our previous life, that's why we've got manas dehi this time.
Anji.
So this is our opportunity, no matter what life circumstance, right? Like when we're so fortunate, look, we've got Puran Guru, we've got Sadh Sangat, we have access to Katha Vichar.
Anji.
And we have a human body.
Yeah.
Like this is like, we've hit the jackpot. And
twice or 3 times.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And so we have kirpa already. It's just, we have to do the, kamai. And even that's in Maharaj's hands as well.
Anji.
But it's just like, sometimes we think, oh, but sade karam nahi hai. It's not our time, or the fact that we've got a human body is the perfect example of the fact that, we have good karam.
Even if you know about the concept of karam as well, right? Because a lot of people don't believe in this kind of stuff as well, right? That, we had a karam, previous lives and stuff. To have this access to this kind of gyan, we're very lucky.
Yeah.
And it only takes a second, right? It obviously takes a long time, but only takes that one step, right?
To connect.
Take a one step towards Guru Sahib Ji, and then they'll do the rest. So no, definitely. It's crazy. And just one question for you, actually. A lot of people talk about this idea of Man Jeet Hai Jagjeet from Japji Sahib. What do you think about that? Is anything like I hear a lot of people talk about
this is a loaded question, by the way.
Okay, because I'm wondering, because I'm like, it's truth because it's from Gurbani, so that's all I know. But what
it doesn't frustrate me, but it's like everyone just says, look, Man Jeet Hai Jagjeet. Go to now, they just says Man Jeet Hai Jagjeet. So yeah, but what do you mean by Man Jeet Hai? Like, how do you get jit over your mind, basically, right? And it's
and what even is the man? Because I remember you were explaining about there's 4 different stages, like processes the mind works. The man, jit, the bodh, the homa,
Hanji. So I guess in when we say mind, we just think mind, right? But the mind is just made up of sankalp and vikalp. It means the initial thought, but then there's a thought that comes from that thought. So like you wake up in the morning, I need to brush my teeth. That's your thought. Then the second thought is, I don't have no toothpaste. Then that's the vikalp. Then from that, I need to go to the shops, or I'm going to brush my teeth. Whichever one it is, right? Hopefully it's not that one, right? But that's the man. But then you have buddhi. And buddhi here, whoopsie, is the intellect. But that's what distinguishes between what you should do. So you could have two thoughts in your mind, but the mind doesn't act upon that. The mind is just thinking there's these two things that, whether it's a good action, bad action. The intellect, the buddhi, is the one that decides which one you do. So there's the man, there's the buddh, then there's chit. And chit means just where you store all your thoughts, all your memories, right? And then I guess that links to habits, right? And then you got hankar, that I am doing it. All these things, right? And now you've put me on this road, going this way, right? But again, it comes through the spiritual stages. So the first thing that we need to do, and I'll definitely be asking this question afterwards, is like, what is the first thing somebody can do, like practical steps? But have you heard of the Satpumika before?
No.
Like the 7 stages. So there's people translate it in many different ways, but you can link it to Japji Sahib, for example. The last Paudia, you've got Ik Du Jibo, Lakh Ho Hai, then Akhana Jod, Chupen Hejod, then you got the Panch Khands, the 5 realms, Dharam Khand, Gyan Khand, Saram Khand, Karam Khand, then Sach Khand. It's like 7 stages basically. And the first stage is Shubh Ichha. You have to have the right desire. So we have many desires, and at the end of the day, you have to start off with the right desire. And so if you just look at Ik Du Jibo, Lakh Ho Hai, it's saying if I had one tongue, Lakh Ho Hai times it by 100,000, then Vis times it by 20, like 2 million tongues, 20 million tongues. They say with each tongue, Lakh Gera Akiya Hai, Ek Naam Jagadis. With each tongue, I'd remember the one. It's just all about starting off with that Shubh Ichha, that good desire. I don't want to go for all of them, but what's interesting is that in Saram Khand, Saram means Kimi Sharam, that we start to get Sharam. But it's not like the Sharam that people think about, shame. It's humility. It's a beautiful type of Sharam to have, right? Because it says Saram Khand ki Bani Roop. Their words are very beautiful. I'm sure you met humble people before, and their words are very sweet. But they say in that stage of humility, it's so powerful that they say, Tithe, in that stage, Kariye Surt Matman Buddha. Surt Matman Buddha means our man chit buddh hankar. These different things. Basically, in that stage, these things start to be like shaped again. Our man changes. Because Guru said this is Nicha under the Nicha Jata. Nichi Hut Nich, the one who's the lowest of the low of the low of the low. Nanak Tinkes Sangasat. Guru Nanak says, I want to be with that person. Jithe Niche Samalina, where those humble people are, Tithe Nadara Teri Baksis. That's where your blessings are. In that stage of humility, everything changes. The way our man is, the way our buddh is, the way our hankar, we start to lose that I, me. It's not me doing any of it. And then from that stage of being so humble and those words being so sweet and our mind, our buddh, everything changing and being shaped in line with the Guru, then we get to Karam Khand. And in that stage you realize there's no one else. There's only Vaiguruji. Right? Jod Mahabalasur. This is your fault now. You've sent me on a tangent, right? Sorry, I'll finish off in this last one. But this is really cool. When they say Jod Mahabalasur, and they say in that stage, there's only Jod, Mahabalasur. Do you know what those words mean? Any ideas? Warrior. Yeah. But they're they're all warriors. Jod, Mahabalasur. They're all different names for warriors, right? Joda is somebody in the spiritual state, is somebody who doesn't go into Mari Sangat. They don't go into bad Sangat. They stay away from it. Said that Pankti from Bhagat Kabirji, Kabir Sakat Sang na kijiye. They said, don't go into the company of those people who are like nindaks, who are slanderers, who are like evil or whatever you want to call them, because it's like going into a room filled with soot. if you go in that room with like white kapre on, white clothes, that black soot is going to go on your clothes and you're going to get a dog. You're going to get a stain and it's going to affect you. So the first type of warrior is somebody who doesn't go into bad circles. They stay away from those negative circles. But the second one is Mahabali, is somebody who controls their senses. They control their eyes. Again, that's probably the biggest one, I think, in my mind. Scrolling, right? We just keep looking and looking. We see everything through our minds. And interesting point that I heard from a saint was that if you just close your eyes when you meditate, like 70% of your surti is already connected. So that's just one tip, like just close your eyes when you meditate. If you can't focus, at least you're halfway there, or even more than that. And the last one was a surma, is somebody who can control, instead of those countless enemies, is controlling all those thoughts that are coming in their mind. There's countless thoughts that we have, but they're able to catch them and control them all. And then you're pretty much there. Then you're in Sachkhand, which is Jyoti Avastha, which is the supreme state. Right, so you just
and the thing is, Sachkhand isn't that dur, right? It's this around us, Kali Kala. So it's crazy that all of this is so accessible to us and is within us and around us, but it's just that Kurdipal, you know, just that the thoughts and that the ego that's separating us. And you know, when you asked about Manjita Jagjit, I was thinking about that Shabad, Haun Gosai da Pehlavanada. I'm God's wrestler. Main Gurmil Uch Damalada. Like through meeting Guru, God, I now adorn a big Damala, like kind of as a singar, like Shingar, like I've met, you know, I've won this fight. So there is a theme of a game or a match or wrestling or some kind of fight or battle. You know, Bhagavad Kabirji talks about Gagandamama Bajyo, Bariyo Nishan. He didn't fight any battles, but he's talking about the battle, internal battle that we have. So that's what I thought about when you said when we talk about conquering the mind, Manjita. I think it's just a way of, it's an analogy, isn't it? Just like those other analogies that we are in a game, we're playing this game. Divsrat Toi Dai Daya Killa Sagal Jagat. Like we're all playing this game. And these are the teams, and you've got opponents, and these are the rules. And if you follow these rules, then you'll win. And so there is that theme in Gurbani. I
love that how you can just link all these panktiya, because it just shows how Gurbani is just so like interlinked. Like you can just use one pankti and it supports this, and it's just great. And definitely.
I'll tell you why, you know, because I wasn't like this kind of person before. You know, I wasn't, it's only when I started doing Simran and I had sangat of people who were doing Simran that my mind started to change. And even like
so when you say Simran, what do you mean exactly? Do you mean just saying like Vaheguru?
Guru Mantar Jap. Yeah. Just Vaheguru. Just focusing fully and starting that internal journey, and then being around elevated souls that, you know, like, because there's the experiential and then there's the theoretical.
Yes.
And it's great to have. It's so, you know, we're so blessed and you're so blessed. Like I'm learning so much from listening to you. And, but when we really connect with that stuff is when we do the dhyan, Hanagyan dhyan. And so it's like, you know, I don't, you know, Guru Sahib says that the mind becomes a swan from a crow when they go into Guruji Sharan. That happens. We all have that mind within us that's capable of becoming a swan. And it's just about sangat and coming into Guru's Sharan. And, you know, taking step towards doing that and coming into Guru's Sharan, that could mean stepping into a Gurdwara. That could mean stepping into your own home, inside yourself. You know, coming into presence and just sitting. Like you don't even have to do anything. Just literally sitting. That's really hard to do in itself.
Definitely.
And then doing the Gurmantar and reading a line of Gurbani in a translation. Like you said, Satguru Kot Panda. Like Guru Sahib would take hundreds, thousands, I don't know what quote is.
Yes, I think it's like 10 million.
10 million, okay.
A lot.
So so we literally just have to take one step at a time, one step. And Sangat is very important. There's that book, isn't it? Jo jaisi Sangat kare, so taisa fal khaye.
Hanji, the mind,
that's it, yeah. So Sangat is very important. Doing Simran is very important. Understanding Gurbani, but Khoji banke, like being a discovering, learning,
Are these like your practical steps? Then,
these are my practical steps,
yes,
I think. They seem to be.
Yeah.
Understanding what you're reading translations, listening to katha. There's so much out there on YouTube. And doing ardas.
Yes.
Is a big one.
That's
because we can't do anything by ourselves. So really, even if you don't know who you're doing ardas to, or if you don't know what is going on, just internal, like an inner plea, to just whoever or whatever, to just, whatever your plea is, and then just doing that, and you don't even have to do it out loud. You can do it inside. Guru Sahib is all around us, closer than our hands and feet, right? So they hear everything, and so I think those are the practical steps.
And the ardas was so powerful that you said that, because a lot of times we forget to do that, just to do ardas, and a lot of times I'm sure, like in many people's lives, when they're in such a low state, they're just doing ardas from that low state, and it's so powerful that literally in a few days, probably everything's back to normal, everything's great, and they're the one that takes away all of our difficulties. Like a lot of people say this line beforehand, Tine Taap Nivaranahara. So Tine Taap, like the destroyer of the 3 types of diseases. One is called Manda Rog, which is the disease of the mind, Sarir Darog, the disease of the body, and the next one's like different translations, but one is like Param Palekha Darog. So of all the Param that we're in, they're the one that destroys all of them. Tine Taap Nivaranahara, Dukh Hanta Sukharas. They are the one who destroys all the Dukh. They're the treasure of all the Sukh. Rhymes as well, Dukh and Sukh.
Wow.
Tako bigger na ko lage. That person has no obstacles. Jaki prab aage ardas. If they're coming from the Guru, they have no obstacles. And that is definitely something that is taken for granted as well. I remember I was reading a shabad, Darshan Pyasi Dinasarat, Chitva Anadandanita, Khol Kapat Guru Melia, Nanaka Harasangamit. And obviously they're talking about, I want to have darshan of the Guru, Darshan Pyasi Dinasarat. It's just, imagine the love of that avastha when somebody has that desire to have darshan of their true form, which is the Atma, right? Which is Paramatma. But then when they start that shabad, they say, how does it go? Sun yaar hamare sajjana ek karo benantiya. That's the first thing they say. And when I was reading the translations, it's talking about a spiritual seeker who's going to get to that stage of Kolakapata Gurumelia. They're going to open up all those doors, all those layers, and see who is really sitting there. That parda you talked about as well. And it all starts with, I have this one humble plea. And it's about getting to that stage where we've given up. Nanak gri pair divana. I've fallen at your door, right? And just that complete submission, sacrifice. That's a big word as well, right? To be a sacrifice. And when you're like, again, we talked about this earlier. I don't know if it was on camera about working with clients and stuff like that, or patients, sorry, and again, you can have that personal kind of relationship with them and be a bit personal because it helps. And as long as you're within those boundaries, right? Yeah. Do you kind of push this whole Sikhi spirituality side, or do you feel that you can't, or do you wish you could talk about like ardas, or do you think it's not needed?
That's a really good question. I have a range of different clients that come to me. So some people are really interested in the Sikhi and spirituality side of things, are already very knowledgeable and walking the path, and just, need somebody to speak to. Other people are not really interested, but it's interesting because my profile is on like a directory, and people can see that I'm visibly, a Singhani. And so I think people choose me because they have some connection to Sikhi, and they're interested in that side of things, because I play it very cool. Like I don't really bring Sikhi into the session unless I get a sense that somebody is wanting to explore that side of their life. And not just Sikhi, just spirituality. Because the great thing about Sikhi is that, you can apply things like meditation to all religions. If you could, we've got the mantra Vaheguru, but you could do the same technique with Ram Ram, Allahu, anything. So
even atheists nowadays
are meditating.
All these like business influencers are like just meditate.
And so these are we've got some real like nuggets of wisdom here that can help people to experience peace. And so I do everything that I share is usually is always in line with Sikhi, but not necessarily directly. And there's loads of therapies out there that use principles like mindfulness, acceptance that really align with Sikhi. So I can use those therapies. So there's one called acceptance and commitment therapy. There's mindfulness-based therapy, compassion-focused therapy. All these ones are more really quite aligned with Sikhi, to the point at which you want to try and take somebody towards greater peace. So dealing with their thoughts, changing their relationship with their thoughts. And then in terms of beyond the peace element of it, because Sikhi is not about attaining peace, it's about attaining mukti or, realizing yourself. There are some people who are interested in that and want to discuss it and explore it. And so then we do explore that in the sessions. And that's wonderful for me because I get so much benefit from discussing that and doing vichar, and it's wonderful. But anyway, I just love it. I feel like the people that come into my consulting room are my sanjogis, right? We've come together for a reason, and so I try not to see myself as the one who knows, the wise, knowledgeable one. This is a learning experience for the two of us, because that's why we've come into this, encounter together.
And do you like, I remember once I went to a mental health talk. Do you maybe spend more time just listening to them? Do you just let them do the talk, and then with the idea of saying that you're not going in there as the I know it all, you listen to me? What about the tool of listening then?
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful because it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
Because who listens with a clear mind? I was thinking, when me and my husband are sitting on the sofa, like at the end of the day, I'm like trying to listen to him half, and then I got my phone out, and then I'm like, can I really give the gift of listening to somebody? That's a gift, to be able to listen to somebody and listen as in without vichar. Because it's the same thing, listening to the guru, listening to the tun, listening to somebody speaking. It's the same thing. If you can create such a focus and attention, control your attention so much that you can truly listen without vichar flopping in and out. Why is he saying this? Why is he saying this? Oh, that sounds silly, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You've got to like listen with an open, full concentration. And then just that has Shakti. Like, therapy, we think that it's about somebody coming with problems and you solving their problems for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes all it is being in the presence of somebody who has compassion, who can listen, who is at such a vibration that just by being in their company, that's definitely not me, but I know some people who just by being in their company, you feel uplifted. So it's not just about what you say in the therapy, it's how you show up and your intention and what you believe. Do I believe that this person sitting in front of me is going to get better? Or do I believe that, there's no chance, and that's whatever my intention is going to flow through me into the other person.
And just the idea of listening, like even in Japji Sahib, the word Sonia comes up. There's 4 stanzas on it, but in those 4 stanzas, it's like said like 20 times or something. So, and that's like the first stage, right? Listening, right? And it's really cool you're saying that about just listening to them. Then a question that leads on to that is then why did you want to go into this field? What was your inspiration, or what was the reason for you going into this field of mental health and, helping other people out in this way?
So I think that when I was coming into the field, I was coming in because I was intrigued. I was curious about mental health. And because it was a little bit of a taboo topic, and I was a bit of a rebel, I was kind of, like, oh, this might be interesting. What is this all about? And then all of the mystery around the mind and the soul and all of that. And I wanted to understand more about that. Just really curious about that kind of thing. And then it's funny because I think Guru Sahib does everything, right? So Guru Sahib took me on this path for a reason, to try and support people. But when I was initially doing it, it wasn't with that pure intention of, I want to help people. It was more like I think I'm quite clever and intelligent, and I can tell people what their problems are and tell them how to sort them. So it's an ego thing, and so, probably partly there probably was some good intention there as well. But then as I started to connect with my Sikhi, that's when my relationship to my job changed.
Okay.
That was when I realized that this isn't about me being a therapist and fixing somebody. This is about coming together and connecting, because the healing and the healer, it's a cycle. You're not just the healer, you're also the one who needs to be healed. And it's like this cycle where you learn how to heal yourself and you share that, you pass that on. And then that person who has kind of gone through their struggle and come out the other end then goes on to do that with another person. So we're all either we're both things at different points in our life, you know? So it's that interconnectedness and that kind of love for humanity and that, because people are all Guru Sahib's roop, right? And if we love Guru Sahib, we also need to love each other.
Yeah.
And we also need to see Guru Sahib in each other. And if we say we want to meet Guru Sahib on one hand, but yet we're doing Nindya, Chugli, Irka towards the Sargun Swarup of Vaheguru, that doesn't really work. So you've got to kind of, I think the whole becoming more connected to Sikhi and Simran has been my inspiration for the way that I work as a therapist.
Wow, that's really cool. I like the thing you said about healing someone else and then they pass it on to someone else. That's really cool. And just the punk that came in my head was the Tana 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 Jana Aya. It comes at the end of Sukhmani Sahib. They say, blessed, blessed, blessed is that person who comes in this earth. Jis prasad the sabha jagdatarai. Through their blessings, they save the whole world. Jan avan ka ehiswa, jan ke sang, chit avena. Just by doing their company, you remember the one. Aap mukta, they themselves are liberated, but they liberate others as well.
And we all have the potential to be those people. And we all have the responsibility to become those people.
Yeah.
That within our presence, that people feel a sense of coolness, you know? So with our words, with how we show up, you know, that's every Sikh's responsibility to be that person.
And it's that thing that kind of gets thrown on our heads that, look, you guys are the pracharaks, they say to us, because we do it as a living. But the thing is that actually everyone is doing prachar or Sikhi, right? And it's what you're saying is very inspiring, that if anybody's watching this and they think that I want to go into that field, whether it's the same field as yourself or anything else, like you're saying, that you can still have that same effect on people. It's like Guru Nanak Dev worked in a shop. They were Hata Sahib and they used to just give out groceries. They would give out rations to the soldiers at the time. But look how many people used to come to Guru Nanak Dev for advice. So it doesn't matter what field you're in. Of course, some fields are a bit more, you get that. But I'm sure shopkeeper, people like to have the little chit chat.
Like, shopkeepers and like I'm sure people have more in-depth conversation in those spaces than in the therapy room. Like I was saying.
You might as well open a shop, a corner shop. That's like a slash, you know, get all your necessities, but also you can have some vichar as well. That's a good idea. I want to see one in Darshan Kaurs, you know, a corner shop.
Well, I hope it would have a better name than that. Darshan Kaurs Corner Shop. I was waiting for
him to drop a good name, like a marketing name, innit? Darshan Corner or something like that, innit? And you can open that shop.
But it's true that that every interaction we have with somebody is an opportunity to learn and to give. You know, it's not just in the therapy room. Most people don't come to the therapy room. You know, only a few people will do that, and that's not necessarily the best way of getting help either.
Okay,
you know,
what are different ways then of getting help as well then, for those who would not want to come into a therapy room?
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff happening with some organizations. So I work for Secure Mind, which is a mental health charity, and at the moment they're offering quite a few initiatives. So they've got a well-being support group every week on a Wednesday evening, completely free of charge. One is in Punjabi and another one is in English. So every fortnight they have the English and then Punjabi.
Okay.
And they switch. And that's a very powerful space. It's run by a very good friend of mine. She's part of my Sangat as well. Her name's @Core Coaching on Instagram. And it's just a very powerful space where they start off with some meditation and then they just share experiences and they bring Gurbani in as well for those who want to. So there's nice spaces like that, community spaces, social kind of group spaces where you can learn a lot and gain a lot. And just by being in company of others as well, that can be very powerful. So you've got groups like that. You've got lots of self-help stuff online. So there's certain Instagram profiles that catch your attention that you connect with. You can start following those and reading one post a day and start making some changes. Surround yourself with people who are supportive and who are willing to listen. So those are all, you know, friends, family, somebody you trust. Those are all sources of support. Reading Gurbani, connecting to Katha, mind-body stuff's really good. like yoga, just things that are good for your general fitness, your general well-being. So, sometimes we think that mental health is very complicated. And if we've had a complicated childhood, or we've had a very traumatic time, or we've had lots of things happen, that the solution is also going to be very complicated. But I don't know, Guru Sahib simplifies it in my understanding. They talk about how, the nourishment that the mind needs. Otherwise, the santolan, the balance gets affected of the elements and of the bond. And you just need to restore the balance.
Okay.
And that's it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It might just take time to get to that place and to have the sangat and the understanding. But once you know, then you don't have to think, oh, I've had too much bad happen to me. There's no solution for me.
No, that's fine. That's good. Is there anything you want to jump in?
So, Benji, I get this question a lot about having humility, but then at the same time having like self-confidence, self-worth. Because when we say we have to have humility, you're always putting yourself down in that sense. So where's the balance between that? How does it work together?
I think humility is not something that we can just act. It's not something we can put on an act. And, some people, I think in the Sikh community, we're often doing things like, no, I'm a nobody, or I don't know anything, even though when you do know something, or you're asked to do like ardas, nahi, mainu nahi pata karke. So that's the kind of, that might be genuine humility as well. But sometimes it's not. We're trying to put humility on with good intention, because we know that that's pleasing to the Guru, to Vaheguru, and that will help us to get closer to the path. But true humility comes through actually feeling a sense of, I don't know this, I'm again talking theoretically, which probably is not very helpful. But, I think there comes a point where you do really feel that you are man bacha, you are God's child, and God is the doer. Then you feel actually humility. And that comes out in, I think, other ways, not just telling people that you're humble, but like sweet speech and just kind of a self-confidence can come from humility as well.
Really?
A sense that knowing that you are Jyot Sarup, your mind is Jyot Sarup, so you have infinite potential, and you might appear, there's a difference between self-confidence and ego, and self-respect, where you know your worth, where you know that, this is what I'm capable of, Guru's Kirpa, Nal, I can thrive, I can achieve with Guru's Kirpa, and I can achieve my true purpose in this world and things like that. So that's my take on it anyway.
It's not that subtle ego we talked about earlier, that look, you could say that I'm a Sikh of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, I'm a Khalsa, right? I should go out there and I should do my seva. I can go into the workplace and I can do what I'm doing. So you've got that self-confidence, but it's not from a place of ego in that respect, right? And again, even though we're saying a subtle ego, but you're in control of that. And the way it's like you're almost seeing it all in front of you. You can see your thought pattern. You can see what you're doing as well. And even if you look in the ardas, we say, was it Sikhanu, was it Mananiva, Mat Uchi? So Mananiva, we're meant to be low, Mananiva, but Mat Uchi, but we should be thinking the highest. We should be, confident and going out there and doing the seva. Otherwise, who's going to do the seva? Right? If everyone's going to be like, they'll do it, right? Then no one's going to do the seva, right? So I think definitely a lot of these things, I'm sure you see this as well, like in your field, that not one thing fits everybody. Everybody's situation is a bit different, and you can't give the same like prescription to everyone. Everyone's a bit different. So
yeah, definitely. I think it's the same thing. I think it all comes down to the experiential. That's what it all comes down to. That we can try and think our way through Sikhi and act our way through Sikhi, and that's all like we're making good intentions, and that's coming from good intention, and we're making good effort. But until we truly experience, then that's when we get Vivek Buddhi. That's when we really know, because we can only understand Gurbani to a point unless we've done the internal chord. What does it mean, all of this stuff around what we've got, these bathing places inside of us, and we understand to a point, but we don't. I personally don't understand it really. It gives us a pointer, gives us a signpost, but until we actually do the experience, then we see Gurbani in a completely different light. I think
100%. It's like you're saying, it's experience, and we were talking about this on the way here as well when we're stuck in traffic, a lot of traffic, right? And it's that Guru Sahib Ji is the start they're the journey and they are the destination. So they say, Ape Gur Chela hai Ape. They are the guru, they're your guide, but they're also the chela. They're with the chela as well. They're with you. Ape dasse kaat, but they're also the destination. So they're with you at every stage. So we just got to start somewhere. It's good we know this stuff, right? And like, again, we could say it, but it's about them following it. And then that's the journey as well. And sometimes I just enjoy the journey, man. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you like, something that a great Guru Sikh would say to us is, if you start, you'll finish. Just make sure that you start. Otherwise,
because we have to get there at some point. We're going to merge back with Vaheguru at some point. So
eventually,
we're going to, ultimately, that's the ultimate. Yeah. There's no other way. Yeah. Whether it takes however many lifetimes or not.
Hanji.
But because we've got such a blessed opportunity now, we've got to grab it with both hands. Like who knows in our next life if we'd have Puran Guru or we'd have Sangat or anything.
Hanji.
This is the opportunity.
Definitely.
That we have to take.
And just one thing, maybe we can tie off with this as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go back to the point about Kirtan. So I put it actually twice in my notes as well. But like, just yourself with your experiences and, just your love and passion for Kirtan. Can you just go a bit more into that as well and speak to us about the Kirtan side and your seva that you do?
So with Kirtan, like I said originally about connect with music, I think a lot of people, when we are able to still our minds a little bit, we are a bit more creative. We access the more creative parts of us. So the music, the arts, the poetry, and you can see, obviously Gurbani is written all in poetry. There's something about creativity and godliness. I feel like they come together to some extent. I don't know how fully, but there's something about it. And Kirtan's been something I've just always enjoyed. My parents took me to classes from a very young age. And, I think part of it initially, to be completely honest, was around feeling a sense of belonging and a sense of, I guess the ego came into it as well, that I could do Kirtan and people singing along and you feel really boosted and it's like, this is great. Like, I feel so special. So, that's the thing. Whatever you do, whether it's Kirtan, Katha Group, whatever, as the mind is going to be there as well, right? So it will define that experience. So if there's a lot of ego present, then it would define whatever, whether you're doing Katha, whether you're doing Kirtan, whatever. So with me, so it was just, I really enjoyed it and I liked feeling a little bit special and a sense of belonging and just the buzz of doing Kirtan in Sangat was amazing. And it's changed, the relationship with Kirtan's changed a bit for me.
Okay.
Because now I realize a bit more what it is to do Kirtan. And
for those that don't know, like especially those who are like maybe the Darshan Kaur from like 10 years ago, they're starting off. What is it now for you then, if you mind me asking?
Kirtan.
Anji.
Now I kind of starting to realize its real value and what it is to actually do Kirtan and how to do Kirtan. And because if your mind is not focused, if there's no ekagrata, then all you're doing is singing words.
Anji.
To a nice tune. Koi gaave ragi nadi bedi baupat kar nahi har har pija ram. That's not pleasing to Guru.
Anji.
And it's only when you realize that you want to do Kirtan to please Guru that you have to think, okay, so how do I do it in order to please Guru? Right? Otherwise, it's just singing. It's still beautiful that you're getting to sing Gurbani, but it's again not having the benefit for you and for the Sangat around you. So when I realized that it's as I'm realizing that it's such a blessed thing to be able to do, to have the seva of doing, I have to really do the hard work of elevating myself. Put the kamai in, because if I'm doing Simran, my surti, wherever that is where the people around me is going to be taken to. So if that's nowhere and it's just everywhere, then there's no benefit to anybody. But if I've been given this opportunity and I can elevate my surti and I can work hard to do that outside of doing Kirtan, then there's some benefit. And if I'm focusing on what this Kirtan is for, it's a benti to Vaheguru usually, isn't it? It's directly to Vaheguru. It's not about the people around. So to develop that mental discipline to shut out thoughts of, oh, I wonder if I should do this tune because that person will like this tune, or maybe I should do the Simran really fast because those people really like the Simran fast. It's like, actually, what are you doing Kirtan for? Is to please your Guru and to do bentiya. And there's this beautiful tuk, and I always get it wrong, so I hope, forgive me, please, my remembering tuks is really bad, but Bij mantar har Kirtan gao, agya milane thave tao. So Bij mantar har Kirtan gao, that's like talking about, I think, my understanding is that really the ultimate Kirtan is Naam, is Bijing Naam within you. And that's the kind of, within that Bij of Naam, that's the kind of Kirtan that will take you to Dargah. Agya milane thave tao. You'll get a place in the world hereafter. So that's the essence of Kirtan, isn't it? Naam. So
I like how you talked about the energy that you part of also resonates with the Sangat.
Yeah.
And I remember before you mentioned on the call previously that even on a quantum level, there's some kind of energy transfer or something happening.
Yeah, there's like energy fields that people are investigating, that we all have an energy field, and we can, depending on negative or positive energy, we affect each other's energies. And we can create such a state within us that we don't get affected by people's energies as well. But we as Gursikhs who are meditating and connecting with truth, we are radiating, good, positive vibes. And that is, without us even knowing or saying anything, is with Guru's Kripa should be spreading like, there's ripples across the water. This is what we're doing just by being. This is what we have to, this is what we're trying to aim to do. And our Gursikhs, or anybody who's spiritual, anybody who's meditating is going to be changing people's energies. So there's lots of things that change our energy as well, but this is a whole other topic that I don't understand fully as well. But people should look into it. Quantum physics, energy, there's loads of science behind it now. So it's awesome to look into.
And I love that point about how they have the energy and they're radiating it off. Just something I had recently, it links with it. It's to do with Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji, Radha Sawale. And I was listening to a Guru Sikh, and they were saying that because they, near the end of their physical time on this earth, they were in England, and then it was between India and England. And obviously, when they came to England, the Sangat in India was obviously very upset because obviously this great saint has come to England. And then when they would go back to India, then the Sangat in England would be upset. So it was like, what would they do, right? Because obviously they have such an aura about them as well. So they said that there's a reason why they have to leave their body, so they can be in a suksham form, in a subtle form, so they could be everywhere at the same time and help everyone. Right? I guess that's the sharda of the Guru Sikhs, is that look how Diyalu and Kirpalu, how compassionate these saints are and these beings are, that when they're when someone is working in their own spirituality, they start to have so much compassion for everyone around them, and they just want to help everyone. And again, like I say, it's experience, only they know how it works, right? And how they just, like this, like norm is just falling off them onto other people. And it's just so beautiful. Just what you're saying, Viji's talking about as well, that energy transfer, and they have so much compassion. They just want to help the whole of mankind. And I heard that one saint as well, I like reading about saints and stuff as well, that when they left their physical body, Vaheguruji said to them, what do you want? And they said, I just want the pala of all of 84 lakh Jude, of all the beings. So Vaheguruji sent them back just to do that pala. Right? So we have such beings around us.
And that is like the essence of Sikhi, right? Like the old Dharam, Daya Kapoor, that before Dharam, before all of these things, compassion is the root.
Then you can help someone, innit? To have compassion. Like I'm sure when you meet people, and even I know people say that, like you meet people, you think, how could you have done that? How can you be crazy to make such a mistake? But then it's about having that daya, compassion, that look, you made a mistake, but we all make mistakes. And, I'm not perfect. So, and daya is such a big tool.
And inner compassion as well, because we beat ourselves up a lot.
Yeah.
And again, that if the compassion that exists, it will exist within us and it will exist outwardly as well. So that's quite powerful.
Like stopping judging others, stop judging ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. One cool question I want to ask, like a fan favorite question, we could call it. What's your favorite shabad?
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, all of Gurbani's equal, we know that stuff. Everyone says that. But is there like one shabad? Everyone has that one shabad. That's the shabad, man. What would you say is like your shabad that you that connect to?
I really can't choose one Shabad. I don't know what to. I don't
You
know
can't
what I
put
would
Benji on the
choose.
spot like that.
That's a really good question, though. I don't know. What is my one favorite Shabad? Give me a minute or like a few seconds to think.
What about you, Karaveen Singh, then? What's your favorite Shabad?
You can't put me on the spot either.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you tell us first.
Obviously, there's not like one, but one that sticks to my mind is the Jatu Mere Wala Hai.
That's beautiful.
That's a nice Shabad. Especially when I first heard it. And then, because I used to go into SikhNet back in the days with they used to have that whole library, right? You'd be in there and they have the translations and it was like, that's so beautiful. And there's the whole, the Pankti that come afterwards, right? Like, Lakshmi Totana Ave Khai Kharcha Rahanda, Lakhacharasi Medini Sab Seva Karanda. That, the whole of the creation is serving me. And you can see that with these great saints and great beings, right? The whole of humanity serves them. Like one Sakhi, we're going off, but I like to talk about Gurmat. You can cut it out if you want to. It's like Sant Baba Baba Ishwar Singh Ji. No, Sant Baba Attar Singh Ji. Not Mastawani Mahapurush. Was it from
Ansari wale?
Nahi ji, there's another one. I forgot where they're from now. But they were like the Mahapurush of Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji. And basically there was one time where they just disappeared into the jungles and they were in a cave. And something had happened. I think somebody said like go away or something like that. Mahapurush being humble, they just like, Chao, we'll go. And they had lions guarding their cave. Right? And like the jungle was serving them. And then the Guru Sikhs like, we want to go and see Sant Mahapurush, but we can't because the lions are in the way, right? But the lions won't touch you because, Santaji will make sure they don't get in the way, right? But it was just the idea of that, they're so one with the one. They're one with everything, even, the nature around them as well. That Lakhacharasi Medini Sab Seva Karanda. The whole of, Charasi Lakhajun, all the beings are serving them and they're one with it. They're not on their own when they live in the jungles. They have people to speak to. They're speaking to the animals. They're just having a good time. But that was me going off topic. So then you can think of a Shabad.
I did think of one that I really like. That's Pule Marg Jineh Bataya Aisa Gurvad Pagi Paya. I love that Shabad. It's so beautiful because it just reflects that journey. You feel like we're all like, I mean, personally, I've come from like, not that great, but great beginnings. My family was great, but you go through difficult times and you go through difficult patches and you don't think of yourself as anything or that you could experience peace or, happiness. And then, that's pulle hoye, then the guru, you find the true guru and they put you on the path. And then just doing sifs of that guru. Aisa gurvad pagi, to remind myself how lucky I am, how fortunate that I get to experience this path.
And that's like an experience in itself. Like, I know sometimes like you go to the Gurdwara Sahib and someone's doing Kirtan and they start a new Shabad and it's like you just hear that one tuk, the one line, and it's like you just connect and it's like wow, like when you say that I think that is just an experience in itself that's very powerful when you're able to appreciate Gurbani and how powerful Guru Sahib's words and you resonate with that Gurbani. I remember when I was coming back from uni, I think this is my Munna days when I was coming back and I was getting off at Salford Station and I was coming down the hill. I'm going to go Park Avenue. Have you ever been Park Avenue 5 p.m. in the evening when it's like red outside time? Yeah. And then the Kirtan after is always packed. There's so much Sangha there. And I remember red outside was finishing and it was the first time I'd probably read it just focused and it was Anand Sahib in red outside when it says Ananda Paya Meri Mai Satguru Me Paya. And I just read that and I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. Imagine one day you could go home and say to your mom, that's one meaning to it as well, Satguru Me Paya. And it's like in that moment, it's like everything, you're in the present moment then, right? And those, like you're saying, those kind of opportunities will present themselves when you go into Satsanga because it's so powerful there.
It's so powerful. There's talks about how powerful, which Sangat Har Prabh Vase Jiyo, right?
Yeah.
So the Sad Sangat is very powerful.
I think after thinking about it, my favorite Pankti is Joto Prem Kilen Ka Chao. Because like understanding that this is all just a game and that whole, like, it's so playful the way that Maharaj has made this whole universe. We can't ever just box it into one thing. Or even in spirituality, we were talking about this earlier, as you progress, not saying I progress, but as you progress, things just reveal itself to you. So like people get bogged down into, oh, I have to do this and this and this, or this technique. But actually, if you just do it with Shraddha and faith, then things just reveal themselves to you anyway.
And that makes sense with all the science, like behind manifestation and all of that. You can manifest things that you want depending on your intention, your Shraddha. So it's science behind everything. Just for those people, including myself, who need convincing.
Back in there as well. Science is supposed to as well, basically as well. What would you say to those people who are looking to go into the field of psychology and stuff like that? Do you have any advice for them before you finish off? Anything?
Yeah, I would say definitely do it. You know, we need more Sikh and Punjabi people doing the work as well. And just, I would say, really focus on your healing and your own understanding your psychology and working on that. Because that will give you everything you need in order to be a healer. And obviously you need to have your professional qualifications and your courses and all of that. But the Sikh Your Mind, we've got a lot of people who are wanting to get into the field, and they're very good at supporting. We've got assistant psychologists and trainees, people who want to progress. And so we're really happy to, I don't know if
So where can we reach you?
The Sikh Your Mind on Instagram. So it's just at Sikh Your Mind. And then we've got a website, we're on Facebook. We've got a telephone helpline, which I should mention as well, which I think it runs almost every evening, although the hours might have changed. So check on Sikh Your Mind. And that's where a group of us volunteers who work for Sikh Your Mind will be answering helplines with any queries or concerns or issues you guys, anyone struggling with. It's completely free of charge. So get in touch.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
and follow Penji, Dr Darshan Kaur on Instagram.
You can check in your own Instagram as well, Penji.
All right, yeah. And Dr Darshan Kaur as well.
There you go.
Yeah, loads of likes and comments and stuff and shares and whatever.
Dopamine.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Penji, for coming on this podcast. Our first guest as well.
Wow.
So number one, hopefully of many, and hopefully Guru Kirpa Karan, these can continue, and then we can have you on again one day in the future.
And hopefully Paji as well one day.
That'll be cool as well.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Please forgive us for any mistakes that we might have made or did make and stuff like that. So thank you so much. Karmi Singh, any last words? So I've been Sukhdeep Singh. This is Karmi Singh and
Darshan Kaur.
Thank you so much.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.